Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining our regular lunch and learn type session. Thank you for joining, whether you're live or following back on the recording. This is one of a continuing series, so hopefully you all know that. So keep an eye on our marketing pages for the next ones and previous ones to watch. If you have any questions as we go through, please put them in the chat, or you can stay to the end if you're live and ask some questions then. But this session, as you can see, is talking about the roadmap release of Dynamics 365 customer engagement for the 2025 release wave 2. I'm Chris Tilley. I'm an enterprise architect here at HSO, and I'm merely the host. And I'm introducing my colleague and expert, Shilen Kamani, who will take us through the update. So over to you, Shilen.
Thanks, Chris. Hello, everyone. So, as Chris mentioned, I'm Shilen Kamani. I'm one of the specialists in the customer engagement platform within HSO. So there's a lot to cover off today, so please bear with me. I will be rambling on a lot, and AI and Copilot will be mentioned a lot, so I do apologize, but hot topic in today's world. So before we get into exactly what the features are, I just wanted to introduce some key resources for those who have not seen, and encourage people to go and visit. So there's two sort of main areas I think are quite useful for people to go and visit and to read up on any release plans or any latest features or what Microsoft are publishing in the next weeks, months as part of their release cycle. The left-hand side is the release planner, which is an interactive one that allows you to see what's happening across all the modules within D365, whether it's CE, whether it's ERP, Power Platform, etc. However, it's really nice as it breaks it up into what's coming sort of soon, what are sort of in trial features, and the intended release dates as well. And you can sign in and bookmark your specific favorite ones that you might be interested in as part of your environments, or you might be interested in keeping tabs of as well. So really encourage everyone on this call to have a look at that. And on the right hand side, you've also got Microsoft blogs, where they're constantly pushing out marketing material and talking about these features and how organizations are benefiting from them as well. So I also do encourage people to have a read through those as well in your spare time. So as I mentioned, there's a lot to cover through in terms of what's happening within the customer engagement space. So what I'm going to do is first of all cover off customer insights, which is marketing for those who are not familiar with the module. So what are the new features and highlights that I've sort of picked out for customer insights in D365? One of the Copilot and sort of AI features that you may have heard me speak about over the past few wave release updates is the one around Copilot being able to be used to help generate journeys. So in this case, where you're a marketer, you want to create a journey to orchestrate some sort of marketing messages to your contacts and your customers. Copilot will allow you to use natural language to describe what is it you're trying to achieve, how do you want to distribute, and how do you want to branch off based upon different conditions using natural language. So this was a feature that's been in public preview for a while now, but I'm glad to announce that it will now be rolling out into GA in October. So keep an eye on that for those who are using the marketing or customer insights tool. The other one, so transforming the outreach using Copilot, is quite a really powerful tool when you're looking at contact center. So what it's doing is taking away that traditional way of communicating with your customers through passive marketing, so sending out an email or sending out a text message and then waiting for an interaction to happen to then go and trigger off the next step. So with Copilot and now connecting into the D365 contact center platform, it's allowing you to build these Copilot voice agents to allow you to essentially dial out to your contacts and use sort of dynamic and voice interactions to be able to triage and trigger off what next happens. So in scenarios such as, I don't know, let's say an example, you've got a recall on a product as an example. You want to now generate a campaign to go and communicate all your customers who've had a recall, and the options on those recalls could be that they might be an exchange, it might be a refund, or there may be a third option to go and speak to someone in the contact center. Now using the Copilot and feeding that into the marketing campaign, that voice bot be able to orchestrate those messages to the correct people as they're interacting with them on the phone. So as someone picks up the phone saying, I want to actually orchestrate a refund, the Copilot agent can then understand that trigger point, go ahead and process the refund where it needs to happen, and then follow up with comms to let them know that that's now done. Alternatively, hand it off to the contact center agent if they want to speak to someone. So again, you can be very creative with how you want to use these voice bots, but again, it's opening up the channels of how we want to interact with our customers through these proactive engagements. When we then start to look at things like moments that matter, so in terms of the scale of the marketing platform, so Microsoft have introduced a new API, and it's called the Journey API, which is really designed for those large enterprise clients who do marketing at a global scale. So you may have a small marketing team, and you may be doing the same marketing campaign across all the geos, but the variations are the time zones, the contacts that you're dealing with, and then language as another example. So using this Journey API is now going to allow marketers to actually build the journey once, but then be able to distribute it out into the various geos singly. So it allows them to save a lot of repetitive work, consistency on the messaging and the marketing material, and obviously time as well. The next feature is exporting copies of the sent email for recording, for record keeping in the system. So what I mean by that is when you're marketing at a mass to a load of contacts, you're sending out emails which may have specific personalization in them, some conditional content, and sometimes in scenarios that actually may be needed as record keeping because there's either a compliancy reason, you may need it for auditing, or even things like dispute resolution scenarios. So with another API that Microsoft have introducing, the email export API, it will allow you to then extract these copies of emails into a location so you can archive them and keep hold of and keep records of these should you ever need to. So cases like financial services company, you may be sending out critical information to people, and you might need to keep it for an X period of time. So using this API, you're able to now do so, and then remain compliant with that process. And then the third one I wanted to highlight is the expiration of comms. So really important when you're sending out messages that are very much time sensitive. So these could be things like promotions, or if you're sending out emails around attending events or signing up to events, you may want to fix a time frame of when these emails should be available to be sent, and then automatically disable them. So as soon as that date passes, it's no longer sending out out-of-date comms. So now, and as mentioned in the screenshot, you can now set those expiry dates as part of the journey. So you're making sure that you're not sending out emails or any messages to customers outside of the dedicated time frame. When we then start to look at turbocharging sort of your pipeline, so this is almost talking about the event management capability within D365 customer engagement. And the first one is all around payment integrations when it comes to events. So we know that we can set up events using the event capability within customer insights. However, before you would need to use a third-party application to be able to then help manage some of that payment processing process. So in terms of events, you may be sending tickets, your tickets might have pricing tiers. Well, now that's natively been integrated into the platform within the experience of setting up the event. So this allows marketers to be able to set up the events, set up the pricing tiers of any events that are paid for, allow the customers to pay for those events, and then all those payment trackings are done in real time, and you're able to use any of your payment providers that are currently available. So things like Stripe, if you're using them, you're able to use that as part of the sign up process within the event process seamlessly. And then the other one is around event planning, so a bit similar to what I mentioned previously around date frames. So you can now set up dedicated registration start and end date frames. So when you're promoting your events, you may have a period where you want people to sign up on and have a hard cutoff date, because there may be some knockoff effects on the logistics of the event. So maybe about people, how many people actually can attend the event, the logistics of the building. It may be also to do with catering. So all of these factors will be taken into consideration to make sure that the start and end date is abided by, and make sure that the event is actually running smoothly and you've not had a wave of, say, 100 people coming to the event and the actual event cannot anticipate or organize and manage that volume. So again, helping control the event process and making it seamless for the marketers throughout. And then the last one I want to touch upon is unifying that sales marketing process. So this is where Microsoft have introduced a new events portal. So as you're creating events within the marketing tool, you're able to deploy a dedicated events portal. We're using the Power Pages, and it acts like the hub for all your customers to go see all the events that are available or coming up, who the guest speakers are, how they can register, and it's all as it's built on the Power Platform, Power Pages. It allows you to apply your templates and custom styles to make sure that it's aligned with your design and your branding as well. So that's marketing or customer insights. I want to now dip into sales. And the first one I wanted to touch upon is this AI feature around connecting your agents to D365 using the model context protocol server. So what is that actually? So we all know Copilot is naturally infused within D365. We can use it within M365 as well. However, you may have specific AI agents not within the Dynamics platform, but you want to integrate with your data with those agents. So let's say, argument's sake, ChatGPT as an example. So previously you would need to have developers to build a load of custom code to be able to do that. But now with this MCP server, it's allowing developers to easily build that without the use of code. So that way they can allow those other AI agents to perform certain actions within D365 and using D365 data. So it may be things like you may want to list records using D365 data. It may want to perform actions such as qualifying a lead to an opportunity. It may even be interacting with other applications. So it may be you might want to do something within your ERP system, as an example, create a support ticket within your case management system as well. So this MCP server using those AI agents will allow you to connect into those D365 data sources without having to develop custom code using the MCP server. And then the second feature is using Copilot to be able to use natural language to help sellers find and filter out information quickly. So those who have used Dynamics in the past will have seen that in order to really filter out the list of records that you're dealing with, you'd either have to do things like an advanced find or apply filters onto the columns that you're seeing. However, with this new feature, you'll now start to see an area within your form or your list view where you can use your natural language to then essentially ask or type in what you're looking for. So things like, if I'm looking at opportunities, show me all my opportunities with the estimated revenue greater than 10,000K as an example. That will then go and apply that filter, and then your view will automatically update, and then you can save that as you would normally save views as well. So again, trying to make the experience much more faster, not having to think about the logic for end users, using natural language to get the information that they need much more quicker. The next one is all around some productivity capability. So using Copilot and AI to smartly enter information into the system. So what do I mean by that? So as a salesperson, I might receive an email from a new lead into my Outlook mailbox. Now, previously people would need to either create use the add-in to go and create the contact within Outlook, or sometimes people copy and paste information from the email into D365 on the record. Well, now if you copy the context of what you want to add into D365 onto your clipboard, so highlight, Control C on your keyboard and then go into D365, what you'll notice is that the assistant will then identify that there's information mapping to specific fields on the form, and it will suggest, do you want to keep these mappings, and it automatically create those records for you. Now you can accept all, or you can individually accept the ones that you want to correctly map, or discard anything that you don't think is a correct mapping on. But again, it's to help maximize and reduce the manual effort of creating information in the system or trying to load information into the system. Now, taking that concept, you can also load data files into a record. If it had that same information, it'll look at the file, see what's in there, try and map it to fields in the system, and then give you the recommendation whether you want to keep it or not. When we look at the lead management piece, so this is all around boosting the pipeline and being allowing the sellers to be a bit more specific in what they're going to be focusing on. So when we talk about the sales qualification agent here, it's actually built up of 3 separate agents. So you've got the research agent, which will essentially go and look at information about the lead that you're dealing with. You've got the prioritization agent to then prioritize and recommend based upon the profile and the organization and your the one that aligns best to your company. And then you've got your outreach agent, which will then help support communications back. So when we start to look at the qualification agent, or specifically the research agent in this case, it will allow us to pinpoint specific sources of data to provide the seller with useful information around the lead. So whether it's around public information from web sources, understanding how the next best action is based upon the engagement that you've had, generating personalized emails based upon the context that it's able to uncover and give you the control of whether you want to accept it or whether you want the system to go ahead and triage that, and then allow the seller to essentially focus more on the selling side rather than the admin researching capability. So these agents will help support them to give them the information they need, prioritize it in a way that they can focus on the correct deals and correct leads and opportunities that's working for them, and then anything else, knock it down on the list so they can deal with them on a later date. So when we start to look at things like how does the qualification agent help in certain scenarios, so things like email validation. So we get a lot of times where you may have a feed from your website, you may have a feed from other sources, and people enter in some dummy emails, whether it's a personal email or whether it's an email with fake aliases. So these email agents or these validation or the qualification agent will look at this information and then start to suggest and rank which emails are actually worth following up on because they're actually valid, and which ones are actually dummy ones and they're probably just seeking for information. So it's great when you've got leads from a mass, and it'll help prioritize which ones you need to focus on and get rid of the ones you don't need to focus on. And then you've also got things like the custom web sources. So yes, the research agent will look at public data, but however, every organization may have specific sources of information that's unique to their industry, whether it's regulatory or whether it's niche publications, whether it's specifically for that industry itself. You can start to point those sources of information to point the research agent to those sources, so it can then start to analyze and use that information in context to how your organization wants to pursue that. So as it's making these decisions, it's giving you the decisions based upon how your organization works rather than a general one. And then lastly, from the sales perspective, you've got the seller's experience, which is a new and updated version of the hierarchy data and visualization capability. So Microsoft had one. It was fine. It did the job. However, now they've gone and reamped this capability where you can then start to create org charts and team charts, etc., into your database to give you a quick view of how the hierarchy structure works within whether it's an organization or whether it's contacts, etc. Now it's very much configurable, but it also allows you to be a bit more intuitive than the previous one did. So things like zooming in and out, previewing information. So when you click on an organization, as an example, producing the card on the right hand side to give you a quick view and insights into the account. If you're looking at account information, you've got the branching and hierarchy structure on the right hand side, so you can then understand the relationship. And especially when it's a big account with loads of subsidiaries and loads of contacts within there, it's very helpful to then visualize that within this new experience as opposed to the previous ones. So again, one to keep an eye out for. So next area I want to tackle is customer service. So within the customer service, so we're looking at, in this case, using again Copilot to be able to help automate some of the lifecycle tasks within a case. So where you've got agents across all the applications, customer service have a case management agent, which allows the customer service agent to no longer handle those repetitive tasks, for instance, like creating a case or from an email or a chat, or updating a case based on a conversation that you've had, or resolving it based upon an experience. So classic example, you're on the contact center, you pick up the phone, you're having a conversation, your agent's focus should be between that customer's issue and them trying to resolve it, rather than spending time doing the admin work. So a lot of the time at this moment in time, agents are having to go and do the admin work after. However, using these case management agents instead, it's taking and understanding everything that's happened with the case and doing the follow-up actions on behalf of the agent himself, so they can focus more on actually closing off the case and satisfying the customer's needs, rather than creating the case itself, which the system will and the agent will automatically do for them. And then you've got the response using Copilot as well. So doing things like email templates and Copilot, you're able to generate your responses very quickly from a customer. So whether it's using context from a previous email thread, whether it's through the use of ones that you've pre-created, the Copilot will be able to easily automatically suggest the right templates and the right responses for the agent to use if they wish to use those as well. So again, spending less time on writing up emails, allowing Copilot to help produce that for them, using the templates, and then also adding in sort of the context of the conversation or the case into it as well. And then updating knowledge base using knowledge base management agent, which is another agent that's been introduced within the customer service space. So this agent is really there to automatically change that case data from both live case data and historical case data into actions and insights for knowledge articles. So the idea is that where you've got a issue that may be occurring or reoccurring, or one that's we've seen a spike in, the knowledge-based agent will be able to identify these and generate the content to be able to resolve those issues without having to wait for someone to go ahead and publish an article itself. So this is obviously a really good and useful scenario for things like contact center agents, where you may have an influx of questions that have happened that's outside of someone's control. Now, these knowledge article agents will be able to then identify these as a reoccurring pattern, generate a content article out there to then go and publish to the agent. So as the phones are ringing or as emails are coming into the mailbox, there's already an article ready in real time available for agents to be able to use. And again, you can put guardrails and approval processes in place as well, should you wish to make sure that the information that's being published back to the contact center agents is accurate. However, the creation and management of that is much more quicker, and you've got a load of insights and stats off the back of these as well to give you an idea of how useful they are and which ones have actually led to resolutions in these cases. Right, so We've also got contact center. So now within the contact center, that I could spend hours and hours in what's happening with contact center. So for those who are not familiar, Microsoft have released a contact center solution, which is all encompassing. It gives you all the phones, the different channels, and natively connecting into D365 customer service for your case management piece. And as you can see, there's so many different features that are they're constantly rolling out as part of the Wave release. Now this is just a handful. And just to point some of the ones that they've got in there. So things like real-time translation, as an example, you may be dealing with customers through multiple languages, using real-time translation, whether it's on a chat or whether it's through voice, the agents will be able to get those real-time translations in real time. When we talk about proactiveness of the routing and the sort of the configuration of that of that. So in terms of sort of the analytics and sort of the classification features, where we want to track sort of every proactive call that's happened, so the insights into whether someone's actually picked up or there was no answer, or was answered by a human, or was answered by a machine, as an example. We want to be able to analyze these and help to sort of optimize the next time we want to go and dial out. So if we're driving things like campaigns, like how we mentioned within marketing, we want to see what the successful rates are and what does that actually lead into, and use the data to be able to then refine those proactive strategies. So that also then leads into things like supervisors' experience as well. So supervisors will have AI generated forecasts. So one of the main things that they need to do is making sure that there's enough people on the desk to be able to then, first of all, handle the workload or the volumes that we're expecting to see, but also they're not being inundated with work as well. So these AI agents will help forecast that based upon historical information and predictability, and what things may potentially change, and give them a view of best resourcing your staff within the contact center, but then also giving them things like blockage capacity to make sure that if people are on a call and they might want to introduce other people onto the call to help do some things like consultations, you may have a first line agent who needs a third line agent to handle a specific request, as an example, blocking off their time to make sure that those agents are dealing with that specific request without trying to inundate them with more calls or more conversations into their existing workload as well. So all these sort of clever things to make sure that what you're actually doing within the contact center and how you're distributing work and distributing conversations to the right agents will help then support not only the agent's experience, but also the customers, the end customer's experience, because they're now being catered for in a much more focused manner. And then once again, there's a load of things around the forecasting element, a lot of productivity things, like I mentioned, around agent experience and transfers. Again, I think I'm running out of time, so apologies if I'm rushing this. I did want to sort of mention that there are a load of features out here in the contact center, so I do encourage everyone to go and see it if it's one that they want to explore a bit more. I'm more than happy to pick up any other further conversations offline if anyone wants to speak to us about contact center specifically as well. But last thing I wanted to cover off is field service. Now, field service is seeing a few changes in the sense of integrating the bookings of Outlook and Teams through to field service in D365. So now when you're creating your bookings directly within Outlook and Teams, that engineers will probably be using on a day-to-day basis, they'll be able to see that within the Outlook calendar, as also centralizing their calendars into sort of one place. So they're not having to toggle in to see what their calendar looks like in the field service app and then what the Outlook calendar looks like for personal things. We can then start to consolidate that into one experience within the mobile application itself for these agents, so they can manage their time and their workload much better. But also from a scheduling perspective, they're able to then cater for those private appointments, etc. in the experience. And then we've also got some changes into how field service integrates into ERP, so or finance and operations. So there's a new bi-directional dual-write integration that connects D365 field service into project operations and then finance and operations using the dual-write application. So in scenarios where you've got technicians and they've got labor costs and materials on a work order, those can then flow into your project entries and actuals within project operations, and then those can then synchronize into the financial actuals within F&O in near real time. Now the dual-write integration will then also take into aspect of things like the legal entities and supports things like master planning. So for any service related materials, and then it can also be extended into any custom entities or fields that you may have specifically within field service that may impact the financial flow. But critically, what really is it doesn't change anything around sort of the back end processes financially or how the systems use it. It's more around the flow of information that's natively improved as part of how D365 field service and UA connect together. Now, along with that, you've got things like the billing information. So with field service tying into work orders and agreements, and then that directly tying into projects and tasks in project operations, you can then start to really gain that single source of truth of estimates, usage, costs, pricing, billing, etc. And then also from a serialization of inventory perspective, you get an end-to-end traceability of enhanced stock, serialized and then batch control products using the work orders. So when technicians are on site, they can capture the site, the warehouse, the location, the batch numbers of the stock in field service, and then those dimensions will then flow into project operations and then into finance and operations as well. I appreciate there's a lot of information I've gone through. Hopefully you found that useful. I'm more than happy to take anything that you found today offline into more detailed conversation if there's anything specific that you wanted to go into a bit more. However, I just wanted to wrap up on sort of the last point around the next Lunch and Learn that we have on the 25th of September, which is all around Expo Logics and the CPQ tool. So Chris or Debbie, did you want to add anything further whilst we wrap up?
No, I think it was just to thank everybody for coming. There's obviously a huge amount of investment by Microsoft. I think their R&D budget is something like 24 billion a year, not just in business apps, but across the whole estate. And you can really see a lot of it goes towards Dynamics and the associated apps. So if you are struggling to get the most out of your current investment in Dynamics 365 or anything in the Microsoft stack, we do offer a kind of continuous improvement approach as well now. So it's worth reaching out to us or an account manager, anybody on this call really, to ask about that, and we can help you kind of really drive the investment you've already got to make the most out of it. But otherwise, it's just to say thanks to Shilin for trying to cram all of that into 25 minutes, half an hour. We haven't got any questions in the chat, so unless somebody's got a final last minute thing, we will wrap the recording now and give it a couple of minutes after for any verbal questions. But otherwise, thanks everyone for coming.